Alan, I want to ask you a little bit of domestic politics, if I may. I was reading an interesting article in the UK Telegraph, actually, and it said that sources close to Donald Trump say he is anxious about the looming midterm elections and is even weighing up who is around him, who's an asset and who is a liability. When you hear him speak in public, he seems very confident, and that's the way that Donald Trump's always been, that he's confident that, yeah, okay, maybe the polling doesn't suggest that he's the most popular president right now. Uh, how do you see this playing out between now and the midterms? His popularity has obviously slumped. What do you think will happen? I mean, how do you see it going?
Well, I do think his popularity remains strong within his own base. And so, politics is all about amassing majorities, and he's been pretty good at doing that. Now, the balance of power is delicate for Republicans in particular. 218 to 212 in the House, and the Senate's tight too, 53-47. The Democrats just could, gain 4 seats to win the Senate. And there's some vulnerable seats. Susan Collins is one. I think she'll pull it off. She's facing Graham Plattner, who is the sort of the socialist Democrat with the Nazi tattoo. And but you've got an open seat. Tom Tillis is retiring in North Carolina. You've got the situation in Georgia where John Ossoff, who is a Democrat, could possibly lose a seat. You've got tough elections in Ohio and Alaska and Texas. Of course, everyone's looking at Texas because of the James Tallarico guy, but I think Ken Paxton will handily defeat him. I hesitate to make predictions, but I think the Republicans hold on to the Senate. I don't know about the House. I really don't know. There are just too many just districts at risk in Nebraska, Arizona, Iowa, New York, just different places. And it's hard for me to make predictions in those spaces. But if I were a betting man, I would say the House probably goes Democratic while the Republicans retain control of the Senate. But in politics, a week is like a year. So who knows what could happen by the time the fall rolls around.
Yeah, no, that's a very, very good point. How much has the Iran war had an impact on Donald Trump?
I think it's probably had a pretty negative impact. No one wants to see the Iranian regime in place. Of course, nobody's rooting for that. On the other hand, I think Americans had grown skeptical about sort of foreign policy adventurism, and they'd had a bad taste in their mouth after Iraq and Afghanistan and other conflicts abroad, even Russia, Ukraine. And so, I also think gas prices were a big one. I mean, gas prices jumped a ton for months and months and months. They're coming down now that the Strait of Hormuz is open. But when people feel inflation, which we had headline inflation increase, and that's energy and food costs that are pulled into headline inflation. So that's what people feel. Even if core inflation remains below 3%, what consumers are feeling is that 4.2%. They're feeling the energy and the gas prices. And also people have short-term memories. So we forget that, inflation was 9.1% under Biden at one point. And at that time, gas prices were over $5 because that was 2022, and 2022 was 4 years ago. We care about what's happening now. But I think that it's a combination of things. I think it's a combination of just sort of disenchantment with foreign interventionism and high prices at the pump. But again, as I say, politics in 1 week is like a year in politics. So if gas prices continue to come down, inflation gets under control, we could see a lot of surprises come November, come the fall, and that could lean in the Republicans' favor, because right now the Democrats are basically leaning on those things. They're leaning on gas prices. They're leaning on inflation because they have nothing else. The stock markets are breaking records every single week, it seems like. We've broken so many records this year, it's hard to keep track. I think there have been over 20 records between the S&P 500 and the Dow and the Nasdaq. So, people's 401ks, people are and their investments are doing very well. I guess the issue for a lot of voters is that many of them aren't the type of people who are able to invest because they're paying their mortgage, they're paying car payments, and they don't have that extra income to invest. And so those are the people that Republicans need to reach.